One of the most important things that we really feel you need to see in experiencing the Last Supper is that what Jesus is doing with his disciples on that night is they are celebrating the feast of the Passover festival. 3 times in that passage you just read, we read about Jesus celebrating the Passover. That means that this meal that he's eating isn't just one last nice meal with his good friends. This is Jesus and his disciples being obedient to the law of God and observing the ordinance of the Passover feast. You may know that there were 7 different feasts that God's people were to celebrate, and the Passover festival was the first of those 7 and arguably the most important of them all. It's in this feast that we see Jesus will now interpret these age-old symbols and see them as being fulfilled in the events of his death and resurrection. You can actually look at the other 6 festivals as well and see how Jesus fulfilled their meaning as well, but those are a lot more indirect. This is Jesus's complete fulfillment of the most important of Old Testament festivals. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight, just taking some time to look at what the Passover symbols were and what they mean in connection to Jesus' upcoming death. Maybe just also to say what we're not doing tonight. So what we're not doing is what some modern Jews and even Christians today call a Seder observance meal, where there's a lot more different food items and elements on the table, and Christians today might interpret all of those elements. And while that might be helpful for people to do, that practice itself only really we see was recorded and done in like the 3rd century, way of it after Jesus' time. It was unlikely that that is what Jesus and his disciples were doing on the night of the Last Supper. And so the elements that we have and all the observances that we'll be doing in our experiencing the Last Supper are all elements that are taken from the scriptures that we know Jesus and his disciples were obedient to on that night of the Last Supper. And so there's symbols that we have on our table. There's 5 of them. Firstly, we have unleavened bread, bitter herbs, and lamb. And just all of those 3 elements are all taken from Exodus chapter 12, where the Passover festival is first described as an observance for God's people to obey. And so those 3 are all taken from Exodus 12. Then there's also a bowl for dipping, where they would have dipped their bread into. We know that was present at the Last Supper because it's how Judas was, how it was indicated that he would be the one to betray Jesus as he dipped his bread in the bowl. And we have a cup on our table as well because we see Jesus taking a cup. So those are the elements that we have. We're pretty sure these would have been on the table on the night of the Last Supper. We will also be in our homes. We will be singing. We will be praying together. We see in the scriptures Jesus sang with his disciples. They would have prayed together as well. In the Old Testament observance of Passover, it would have been done in households and with neighboring households as well. And so everything we're doing tonight together would largely represent what we believe would have been present at that time. Now, although this is not a Seder observance, we've borrowed one element from that more elaborate ritual. In a Seder observance, there are 4 cups that people would drink from at different times. We're just having 1 cup, but we will drink from it 4 times. And when we drink from that cup together, we're going to say a blessing when we do. And the reason we do it 4 times is based on the 4 saving actions of God that are recorded in Exodus chapter 6. So Exodus 6 verse 6 to 7, God promises his people, says, "Say therefore to the people of God, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. Number 2, I will deliver you from slavery to them. Thirdly, I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great acts of judgment. And then number 4, I will take you to be my people, and I will be your God, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God who has brought you out from under the burden of the Egyptians." Now, as you'll hear later in this celebration tonight, the Passover is connected, of course, to the deliverance of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. And so that Exodus 6 passage describes 4 saving acts of God, and that's why we've designed this Last Supper experience around those 4 saving acts and 4 opportunities to say a blessing. And here's the blessing that we will say at each of those occasions. The blessing is, "Blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. You can get used to saying that. We're going to say it a few times. And the reason we do this is we are blessing God as the one who has provided all of these gifts for us to enjoy.